Hey Meeple people, how's it going? And on today's vlog, we're going to be playing On the Rocks by 25th Century Games and PenTree Games. Let's get to it! Hey Meeple people, and we're going to go ahead and learn a little bit more about this game, a quick overview per se, from Sarah. So let's go to her and learn more about On the Rocks. Can you tell us more about On the Rocks?
Do you have a form of ID I could see? Just kidding.
Run! Run!
So On the Rocks is a 1 to 4 player game. There is a solo mode in this game. In it, we are bartenders and we are crafting specialty cocktails for our patrons. And at the end of the night, at last call, whoever has accumulated the most money in tips and charges is going to win the game. So the way that it works is we have these really cool, they almost look like menus. Everything in this game is so thematic. So we have this really cool board here that has the this like double layer to it. So there's an indent here, and then there are indents in each of the drinks as well. So there are 4 different kinds of drinks shown on this board. We can be working on any of these at the same time. So we have a spot for an old fashioned, a hurricane, a martini, and a highball. And then we have some drinks. So these are the drinks that I've selected to try to work on at the beginning of the game. Players will take 3 or 4 drinks for each order of drinks. So this is my first order for the game. I've got a hurricane, that's going to be a banana daiquiri, a highball, which is going to be a blue Hawaiian, and a martini, which is going to be a key lime. So these are the drinks that I'm going to be attempting to craft. Basically, if I can craft all of these drinks, then I will complete this order. Players are going to work on 3 orders throughout the game, but we don't have to do this sort of like together. So I can be working on my first order even if Nick is already on to his second order. However, when a player completes their third and final order, it will be last call. So you don't want to dilly-dally too much because you do want to get as many drinks completed and as many orders finished as possible before last call. So the way that the game works is there's a bit going on in this game, so I'm not going to hit on every single thing. But basically what's going to be happening is on your turn, you're going to be drafting marbles from these jiggers, and you're going to be using those marbles as ingredients to complete the drinks that you're working on for your current order. So the first thing that's going to happen is you can play some cards optionally, or potentially if you've encountered a negative card, you'll have to deal with those effects as well. But eventually we're going to get to sort of like the main part of the turn, and that's where you're going to roll these dice, which are frosted. They look like little pieces of ice. It's very cool. And that's going to give you a cumulative total. So here I have 7. From the bag of ingredients, I am going to draft 7 marbles. So I just choose randomly 7 marbles from the bag, and then I am going to draft these into these jigger bowls. So on the first turn of the game, there are marbles in every jigger bowl, but on every future turn, there's going to be 1 jigger bowl that's empty because players will have taken the ingredients from that jigger bowl. So if it's the first turn of the game, I can pick any jigger bowl I want to start with. If it's a future turn of the game, I have to pick the empty one to start with. So I'm going to take these ingredients that I've drafted from the bag, and I'm going to put 1 in each jigger bowl until I've run out. So you want to be a little strategic about this, but I'm just going to throw them in for now. Once you have placed the drafted marbles in each jigger bowl, you're going to choose a jigger that you would like for your own ingredients. So let's say that I want this one right here. I'm going to place these ingredients in this section of my board right here, and then I'm going to divvy them up among my drinks. So for my banana daiquiri, I do need a green, and that's going to go into the very top slot to match the recipe card right here. For the highball, my blue Hawaiian, I do need a red, so I'm going to put that there. Let's say that I'm going to use this yellow one for my daiquiri as well. I could have used it in my key lime because that also requires a yellow, but I'm going to go ahead and use it in my daiquiri. And then I have these 2 clears. These are wild. They can be anything I want. I don't have to place them right now. Let's say that I'm going to place this one here. I'll start working on my martini as well. This one right here, if I want to, I can store on my shelf of extra ingredients. However, there are ways that those can be affected, so I might actually lose that by storing it there. There are two different kinds of marbles that we may encounter in the game as well, in addition to the regular ingredients. These are these two right here. The gold one sort of represents like premium ingredients, and if you draft a gold marble from the jigger bowl that you selected, you'll place it on this sort of little piece right here, and then you'll actually look into the bag and choose two more marbles that you would like. They can't be gold ones. You can't wish for more wishes, right? But you get to basically select by hand two ingredients that you would like. There's also these black spill marbles, and if you draft a jigger with one or more of the black spill marbles in it, you'll have to take a spill card after you complete your turn, and it will negatively affect your bar in some way or another. The ones that I remember from our practice game primarily dealt with actually spilling your drink and losing ingredients from your drink. So they would say, you have to lose X number of ingredients from this type of drink, or you have to lose this type of ingredient from one of your drinks, or that kind of thing. When I draft a jigger bowl that has either of these kinds of ingredients in it, I will resolve that ingredient effect, and then I'll place them in this sort of holder right here. And they will stay there until either there are 4 black ones or 3 gold ones, which are all of the ones that are in the bag. And then I will select all of that type and place them back in the bag. So we will leave out of the game any gold ones that are brought out of the bag and drafted until all of the gold ones have been drafted, and then we'll put them all back. Same thing with the black spill marbles. So on my turn, after I've done my tips and complaints, which are those cards that I have to deal with at the start of my turn, after I've rolled my dice and seeded those jigger bowls with the ingredients, and then drafted a jigger bowl and used it to sort of begin crafting my cocktails, I can save any ingredients that I want to, like I said, and then my turn will end. And when my turn is over, then it becomes my opponent's turn, and they do the same thing. If I complete drinks, let's say that I had drafted all of the ingredients that I needed to complete my banana daiquiri, then I would actually complete this drink right here, and I would be able to be a little bit further along the way to completing my first order, right? And as soon as you've completed all 3 or all 4 of the drinks in your order, you're going to take one of these lemon wedges and you're going to place it on the board to indicate that you've completed your first order. You'll get some new order cards, and you get to choose which types of drinks you'd like to work on. The larger drinks, the hurricanes and the highballs, they have potentially more ingredients than the old fashions and the martinis. So there is a little bit of strategy about, do I want to work on a really big drink that's probably going to get me a lot of money, or do I maybe want to work on a smaller drink so that I can finish it faster? But either way, you'll draft some new drinks for your next order, and you'll just continue to do that until you have completed 3 orders. When a player has completed 3 orders, then last call is made. Every other player gets 1 more turn to try to complete as many drinks as possible, and you do want to do that because incomplete drinks are worth negative points at the end of the game. And then you finish last call, and the game ends, and players score. The player who initiates last call does get a bonus, and in a 2-player game, there's only 1 bonus, but in a higher player count game, there are multiple bonuses. So it's sort of like a race to see who can finish the game first, and then who can come in next after that to get those bonuses. At the end of the game, you're going to add up all of the money that you've made from completed drinks, as well as from tip cards that you've earned. The tip cards are cards that you can earn when you complete drinks, and they have sort of a dual purpose. They are either going to allow you to, let me hang on one second. All right. they're either going to allow you to perform an action on your turn. So I can either do this action right here, or I can keep this, and at the end of the game, it's worth this number of points. So these have kind of a dual purpose, which I found for the two-player game to be particularly nice because they are a little bit aggressive. So if you don't constantly want to be just smacking your opponent, which is a little bit more obvious in a two-player game than it might be in a multiplayer game, then you can just keep those cards and they're worth points for you at the end of the game. So, and I felt like with the tip, this is getting into a bit of our sort of review, but I felt like with the tip cards, they weren't rewarding players particularly for either of those options. Like I could keep the card and it would be just as nice for me as if I punished my opponent with it and then didn't get those tips at the end of the game. So I didn't feel like the game was sort of forcing me to be aggressive if I didn't want to be, which was really nice. Anyway, should we try it?
Woo! That is a lot.
Yes.
She is a professional demonstrator, ladies and gentlemen. And, she does a lot of shows, so this is like up her alley. My goodness. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into On the Rocks by 25th Century Games and PenTree Games. All right, see you in a sec. Welcome back, Meeple people, and we are in the middle of On the Rocks, and we're going to go ahead and talk to Sarah real quick before I give a little bit of what's going on here in our mid-game of On the Rocks, and let's see what she has to say about it. So, Sarah, would you care to tell the people of what you think so far?
Sure. So, like Nick said, we're probably about halfway through the game, maybe a little bit more than that. I've completed 2 of my orders. I'm working on my 3rd. In my first order, I completed a martini, a hurricane, and a highball. And then in my second order, I did another highball, a martini, and an old fashioned. And in this order, I'm working on a martini and a highball, and I've already completed an old fashioned for this order as well. There's an interesting part in the game where when you complete an order, you get to choose which drinks you want to work on for your next order and how many. You can either choose to do 3 or 4 drinks for your next order. And there's an interesting sort of balance there because the more drinks you complete in an order, the more points you get, but the longer it takes, and that gives your opponent time to do stuff too. So for me, I have only done 3 drink orders all night. And the first time I drafted, I just kind of like wanted to be like, okay, let's just kind of ease into this. Let's just start with a 3 drink order and see what happens then. And then I went through that pretty quickly. So then for my next order, I was like, hey, I feel like I'm ahead of my opponent significantly, so I'm going to do another 3 drink order to see if I can speed through the second order and advance to last call, hopefully while keeping them sort of on their toes. And I think that's working pretty well. Like I said, I'm working on the last 2 drinks of my last order, and I actually had my martini completed, but I spilled some, so I had to lose 2 marbles from that drink. So it's actually not complete now. But working on the last 2 drinks in my order, I do have some cards that I could play to help me with that. But if I don't play these cards, they'll be worth points at the end of the game. And a couple of them are 3-pointers, so I may not want to use those. But we'll just see. So far, I feel pretty good. I feel like I've completed some drinks that are worth some money. Plus, I've earned a few tips. So I feel pretty good about my score. What do you think, Nick?
I feel like I'm getting my teeth kicked in. So she is on her last order to go on to last call to force me to finish out my turn and end the game, and I am on my order 2, and I got 1 left, but still it seems like I am dragging in this one. But she's just like, woo, you want a drink? I want a drink, and I'm over here like spilling them all, like, sorry, I'll get you a new one. Oh, it's all over you. Oh gosh. There was a time where there was 3 spills in one. I was like, I'm risky. Let's do it. I got it all. And I was like, immediately, like, I got a lot of resources to complete my drinks with, but then I had to lose not so much. It wasn't so terrible. It was like an opportune time because I just started my second round, so all my drinks didn't have anything on them, and so it was like, okay, like I could use this, and it didn't work out great, but it wasn't a nightmare. So I'm really enjoying this. And in our first practice game, we didn't really use the tip cards that much.
If you don't use them, they're just worth points at the end. So it wasn't like we were just like leaving out a whole part of the game. We're just like, these seem kind of aggressive. If we don't use them, we'll just use them to get points at the end of the game. So we kind of just didn't really interact with each other a whole heck of a lot through the tip cards. But in this game, I think we're doing that a little bit more.
In this game, they seemed like more. They seemed like they help you more in this one. I don't know why I feel that way.
I think we probably just didn't really. We weren't familiar with the cards in the first game.
Yeah, but in this time, we're like, oh, my tip's actually going to help me this time. Or, hey, this tip's going to help me this time. Or, hey, I'm going to use this tip for myself. But now I'm getting to, like, I used to have a bunch of twos. Now I have a bunch of, like, $2 tips. Now I have, like, two and a couple $3. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend that. And so it's a nice little balance of, like, spend it, you lose the tip. Or keep it and you get the tip at the end of the game. So I don't know how much. I think I'm going to lose, but we'll find out because who knows. Sarah might pick up some more spills.
How many drinks did you draft in your first order?
Only 3. We're doing. She did 3, I did 3, she did 3, and then I feel like I'm behind, so I'm going to keep doing 3. I'm not going to do 4, but maybe, who knows? Last call, I might just do 4 just to try to get as much points as I can. Now, if I don't finish one of those drinks, I'll probably lose some points, but...
You lose points if you don't finish a drink.
Who knows if I can get maybe be the comeback kid in the last call, but we'll see. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move back into playing On the Rocks by 25th Century Games and PenTree Games. So yeah, we'll see you all in a sec. Bye! Hello, Maple people, and so I got my teeth kicked in, almost lapped, but not quite. So yeah, didn't get quite lapped in points at the end of our game of On the Rocks. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and dive into a little bit of what we thought the game, and we're gonna start off with Sarah. So Sarah, can you tell us a little bit of what you thought of On the Rocks?
Sure. So I really like the theme, and I think they did a really great job integrating the theme into the game itself. It really does feel, I think, as much like bartending as you can while playing a tabletop game instead of actually bartending. And when I was younger, bartending was something that I was interested in doing. I never actually did it, but it was always something that I thought would be kind of a cool job to have as a younger person. I did work in a brewery as a game demonstrator for a while, and that pretty quickly cured me of any desire to be in a bar environment. And I know breweries and bars are a little different, but even more so. Anyway, so as someone who's attracted to the potential career of bartending, this was a really fun sort of theme, and I feel like the mechanics integrate into the theme in such a way that I really felt like I said, as much as one can feel like they're really doing something at a tabletop, this really pulls the theme through the mechanics nicely. So I thought the theme was really fun. I think that the sort of puzzle that you can do here, through some of it's outside of your control, right? But some of it, you can kind of be like, okay, I get to put out, 8 marbles. That means every jigger is going to get 2 marbles. So if I put these 2 marbles in this jigger and these 2 marbles in this jigger, then and then I, pick this jigger for myself, then I'm going to get like all the ingredients I need to make this one drink, plus maybe like a few of the ingredients I need to make this one. But that gives my opponent some of the ingredients that they need to like finish off their highball or whatever they're working on, or that kind of thing. So I think it's a fun sort of puzzle to sort of figure out like, okay, this is what I have to work with, but also some of this is going to go to my opponent. So how do I distribute this so that I get what I want, but I'm not making their life really easy either? So I think that's fun. I think the sort of having like each player having their own sort of rounds is a neat way to kind of further the game. Like I made it through all 3 of my rounds. I made it through 3 orders. whereas Nick only managed to make it like sort of halfway into his second order before the game ended. So I liked that there's like this variable speed to the game, and that's kind of controlled by the players, right? I thought that that was a nice touch. And I think that there's just so much about this game that really, really pulls the theme through the mechanics so nicely. That to me is like, okay, if you have one bartender that's really skilled or particularly good at their job, then of course they're going to be able to like make, book it through orders faster than a less experienced bartender or a bartender who doesn't, mix their drinks as well or as quickly, So that was like another area where I thought that the mechanics and the theme were like a really nice marriage. And then like there are all of these things that you can do. There are tip cards that where like every time you complete an order, you get a tip card, and you can use those tip cards to either help you do better or to sort of trip up your opponents. And if you don't use it in either of those ways, then you get points for it at the end of the game. But each one of those was also like thematic, right? Like this one here would be one that I could give to Nick. It says that it's a weak drink. And if I give this to him, then he has to remove 3 of the ingredients from one of his drinks. So I've sort of like, I've like tipped a little bit of water into his drink while he was making it. And so I've weakened his drink. So I feel like it really makes it feel like this sort of, especially as a 2-player game, it really makes it feel like this sort of head-to-head competition between 2 bartenders who are trying to make the best drinks quickly and make their patrons happy by doing that. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I think in the first game we played, we didn't really use many of the tip cards, especially the ones that would like sort of target the opponent. I felt at first like it was too aggressive and I didn't really want to be like overly mean, but in this game we were a little bit more comfortable with the mechanics, we were a little bit more comfortable with what we were doing, and we did use more of these tip cards aggressively against our opponents. And I think that definitely made the game a little bit better, I think. Normally, I don't really like to be aggressive if I don't have to be. But there were instances where I could see an advantage to saying like, hey, this happens to you or your drinks. And then there were other ones too where it was like, okay, well, this is worth a lot of points, and if I just save it to the end of the game, it'll be worth a lot of points, but I could really, really get something good out of it for myself right now. So in our practice game, I wasn't super enthralled with the tip cards, but after playing through this game again, I think that these are actually they make the game better, I think, and I think you should play with them, even if you don't like to be aggressive. They're not like, I don't know. I didn't feel like they were ever like so debilitating that like it was going to just ruin the game for anybody.
Yeah, no.
I also think another thing that's really cool, and this will be the last thing I talk about, and then I'll let Nick talk about it. I also think something that's cool. Well, there's 2 things. Sorry. 2 other things I want to say. This right here, this is called the coaster, and it has 4 spots for the spill marbles and 3 spots for the premium ingredient marbles. And there are only 4 spill marbles and 3 premium ingredient marbles in the whole bag. And what happens is when a player drafts marbles out of the bag, if they have spill or premium ingredient marbles in their pull, they go into the jiggers as normal. And then when a player selects that jigger, they have to deal with either the spill or the premium ingredient marble. And then that marble goes to this coaster here, and it stays there until, for the premium marbles, until all 3 of them are here, or for the spill marbles until all 4 of them are there. So you can see right now there are only 2 more spill marbles and 1 more premium ingredient marble in the bag. And so when you're doing things like playing cards that would let you like blind draw out of the bag, I can say like, okay, well, there's only 2 of these left. There was a card I played earlier in the game where Nick had just completed the 4th spill, and so he'd returned all the spill marbles back to the bag, and I wanted to play a card where I would draft blindly 3 ingredients from the bag, but I knew that all 4 of those spill marbles were in there at that point. So I feel like the coaster and having this sort of like slow release control over when these marbles are repopulated back into the bag, I feel like that provides something really, really small, but something interesting to the game as well. And same thing with the premium ingredient marbles. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is I said this earlier, but I really, really want to emphasize it as much as I can. I really feel like this game pulls the theme through the mechanics just beautifully. I think like every single thing in this game makes sense. You know how sometimes like you're playing a game and you're like, oh, hand me that blue thing. What is it called again? Or you misname something because like it doesn't really matter in the course of the game. This one, it was so easy to remember what everything was supposed to be called because it made sense that it was called that. The premium ingredient marbles, they're gold, they're beautiful, they're shiny, right? They're premium top shelf ingredients. That makes a lot of sense to me. The black marbles, they're spills. Your drink might spill if you're, doing this kind of thing in real life. So I really felt like, and then like even like the drinks and stuff, like all of these are like real drinks, and I can imagine that like some of this stuff would actually have these types of ingredients in it. Like for example, one of my favorite drinks is a mojito, which has mint in it, right? So this is the mojito. There are green marbles in here, so I can imagine that that's like the mint that's supposed to be in there, right? So I just really felt like everything about this it had like this very, very thematic feel to it, and almost like this like very classy sort of like, we're making these nice drinks and we're using like, top shelf premium ingredients, and everything about it just felt like, the dice are like frosted, so they look kind of like ice, and then you've got like the order markers are these lemon wedges. It just all feels like a nice experience, and like an experience that makes sense. Like I'm doing this for a reason that thematically makes sense, as well as like a strategy, so like this makes sense strategically, but also thematically. And I think that they do a really, really good job with that. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let my husband talk about what he thinks about the game.
So same. That's all I gotta say. Now, I'll just reiterate a couple things Sarah said. Is the theme really bled through, and like you said, everything made sense. I liked fulfilling orders with the marbles. It kind of like games like Potion Explosion and what is it, Gigamic? Gizmos.
Gizmos, yeah.
Gizmos have marbles, and it's kind of nice to kind of randomly draw or be at the fates of marbles again in a different game. And I thought that was kind of a nice aspect to it. I like this one. It was a good game for strategy, randomness, and theme. Like the theme just bleeding through it was just really evident and really cool. And all the components just really just continue to push through that theme.
There is one thing I'll say that I didn't totally love about it. I think there's not a lot of engagement of the players in between turns.
Yeah, pretty much the tip cards are the only cards.
Yeah, and like you play those, that's the very first thing that you do on a turn is you play a tip card. So if I'm going to play a tip card that affects my opponent, it is the first thing I do on my turn, so they know about it pretty much right away. Then for the rest of my which is nice because then they can kind of plan what they're going to do too. But then for the rest of my turn, I'm just waiting on my opponent. There's nothing at all that I'm interested in that's going on at the table at all. Even the placement of placement of the ingredients into the jigger bowls. After the opponent completes that and drafts their jigger bowl, then you can kind of, if your turn is next, you can kind of be like, okay, well, which one of these might I want? But because there are so many things that might change before your next turn, it's just kind of like you just kind of hang out and wait until it's your turn. So that can be a little bit boring, especially when you're playing. Well, I don't know if it's especially when you're playing with a 2-player game. Maybe if you're playing with more players, it would make that feel even worse because there'd be even more time between your turns. But with a 2-player game, you're just kind of like waiting on the other person. You're trying to be patient, but it's like literally just like waiting for you to finish before I can do anything. So I do feel like that's a little bit, but everything else about the game I think is really, really shines. And I would encourage you, if you try this and you don't like it the first time, I'd encourage you to try it again, because the first time we tried it, I wasn't super enthralled. And then I was disappointed because it seemed like such a cool game. I'm really, really glad we played it again, because I thought that the second time around was a lot more fun. It was, it really shone for me the second time I played. So yeah, that's what I think.
Cool. So again, Sarah really covered everything. I kind of sprinkled in a little bit of here and there of what I thought about it, but yeah. And we also like to thank 25th Century Games for sending us this copy of On the Rocks. We were
And
really,
PenTree Games.
and PenTree Games. I mean, yes,
I think it's a collaborative effort.
yeah, it's a collaborative effort. I think building the game, but I think it came from 25th Century. I don't know how that works.
They published it, but PenTree is actually the design team that created this game is PenTree Games.
I see. So we want to thank 25th Century Games and PenTree Games for sending us this copy of On the Rocks. And if you're not subscribed, get subscribed because then you stay up to date on all of our vlogs that we do. Yeah. Do it. But yeah, well, that is our vlog on the Rocks, and we hope you all enjoyed it, and we will see you all next time. Bye.